Hey, this is Dee Hodges. I'm president of the Republican Women of Baltimore County, and I'm pleased to introduce Steve McIntire, who has been an investment banker and currently he is a real estate investor. So this is perhaps part of the why Section 8 is so important to him, but it's also important to all of us because of um, uh, the county ordinance that was passed and the state law that has not yet been signed yet, that takes away property rights for renters and sellers who are unable to consider source of income. I think this is particularly bad for renters. So with that, I think Steve is going to talk for about 20 minutes or so, maybe 25, and then we'll be moving on to questions. So Steve, have at it.
Okay. I hope everyone's doing well and enjoying their confinement as much as we are here. So I'm going to try to jump through some of the content because I know, some of you have seen it before. That's where I got this wonderful mug here. So, you probably heard about this, and it's usually called the Home Act, but I mean, the essence of what it is it forces all landlords to participate in HUD's Section 8 program, which is a offshoot of the Great Society. It was passed during the Nixon administration, and it takes the whole kind of public housing framework and adds something that was good, which is allowing people to not live in public housing projects and move to, private housing. Unfortunately, it has a lot of the negatives of those Great Society programs. It was basically built on top of that framework, which was a faulty framework that didn't work. And here in Baltimore, this has been an issue now since 2014. That gets actually, I think 2013 they introduced it for the first time. And if you're wondering why is this such a big deal that the Sun propagandizes around it, and it's been caused celebrity among left-wing politicians, is it gives a lot of power to this unaccountable regional housing authority, which is dedicated to basically social engineering, relocating thousands of residents from public housing projects to the county. And of course, it also infringes on property rights. So, progressives love, making landlords beholden to government. The people that are pushing it, the ACLU, Public Justice Center, other FARP groups, these are all the same groups that were behind, the Cabinet settlement in 2016, where we're spending $30 million and relocating 1,000 families. It's also been pushed by the Able Foundation, which is run by the 1960s City Housing Authority Director, Robert Embry. So it's a little bit, he's a McNamara-esque limousine liberal, and this is a little bit personal vindication for him as he oversaw the expansion of public housing, really that pushed the city over the breaking point and saturated the market there. And recently, in 2018, it's become a litmus test vote for, to be a progressive like Olszewski, and really to appeal to this kind of virtue signaling block of voters, the young progressives. Most of them don't really understand it. They don't understand how it's fundamentally based on a falsehood. The entire definition of the bill is actually false. A voucher is not income, and not participating in a HUD program, and HUD's kind of historically terrible reputation, is not discrimination against any person, at least. Maybe it's discrimination in terms of you have a discriminating sense of recognizing that a badly run HUD program is not something you want to participate in. But this has been supported really by the Baltimore Sun and most of the mainstream media, who really don't scratch the surface of what the bill actually does. So during the debate in Baltimore County, which is where, by the time the Maryland legislature got onto this in March, I mean, this was already a done deal. Anne Arundel County, the progressives that took over Anne Arundel County in 2018, they passed this. Baltimore City actually started in December 2018, and Baltimore County followed up in November of 2019. Really, it's Olszewski. He went for this. Cabinets never really supported it. I think he reasonably saw it as infringement on county's prerogatives. He was the one who was being sued for 5 years with this ridiculous ACLU suit. So he never really pushed it, and it failed 6-1 in 2016. Olszewski actually believes in this stuff, and he really pushes through. So during this debate, which was a vigorous debate, there were a lot of falsehoods that were told by the forced Section 8 activists. The fact that their entire bill is premised on something that's not true, which is they're preventing source of income discrimination, isn't really the end of the stuff that they say that's not true. It's like there's no study proving Section 8, and these have all been repeated by the first one. Olszewski has repeated this. There's no study proving Section 8 causes crime. I mean, somebody's not being straight with you when they say that. I mean, and just to point out, there are plenty of studies that show a massive correlation between Section 8 and crime. So basically using the same rationale tobacco companies used about lung cancer, saying, well, we can't put our finger on what the cause is. We just haven't figured that one out yet, to deny this massive correlation that pretty much everyone that looks at recognizes exists. And there's a great, it's actually called American Murder Mystery, but if you Google Memphis Murder Mystery, you'll also get it. Published in the Atlantic in 2009. Great case of this, where some liberal government workers are trying to figure out why there's a spike in murder, and it turns out it's the Section 8 relocation policy that they've instituted throughout Memphis. So, another thing that was said during the Baltimore County debate, vouchers mainly help veterans, disabled, senior citizens. So this is an interesting one, because this may be true strictly for the Baltimore County program, that is the majority of the recipients, and everybody has sympathy for those groups. This is totally false when you include 4,000 other vouchers that are run in Baltimore County and administered by this completely unaccountable non-governmental group, the Baltimore Regional Housing. And watching the testimony there, it was just striking how the county officials, it's almost like they don't know this exists, although they do, but they put on a very good act. Everything they answer, ignores the existence of this elephant in the room, which is a regional housing authority that operates in Baltimore County, but answers to no politicians. They have no vision on it. They don't know where the units are located. This is really one of the big part of the story. I've talked to the reporter at the Baltimore Sun. I'm like, you could win a Pulitzer Prize if you actually covered this, because it's highly unusual to give a group of private individuals run by the ACLU, a social justice activist, authority to administer $50 million a year worth of vouchers and determine where people can live, what rents are paid in different neighborhoods. All those decisions are totally outside of any sort of government scrutiny. So that's one thing you'll hear. Kathy Bevins especially loves that lie about how it's all veterans and disabled people. It's totally false. As a program as a whole, it's a civil rights measure. I mean, it's just insulting to add receiving welfare as a protected class akin to race, gender, and it doesn't expand Section 8 in Baltimore County. This is my favorite. Olszewski loved to say this, and all of them love to say this. I mean, it's written by the people who are dedicated to regionalizing the city's welfare population. I mean, that's their goal. That's why the Baltimore Regional Housing Partnership exists. So they wrote this bill, literally wrote this bill. So tell me it doesn't expand Section 8? Of course it does. You're talking about moving people from one place to another. That means you're expanding it here. And that's proven out in every government. Unfortunately, there's more than one slide of falsehoods here. Landlords will still be able to reject tenants for any reason. So it's nice that they went on the record saying this. It's not true. It's something that will be played out through enforcement. So this bill, this whole forced Section 8 thing, the real damage in this is the power it gives these activists and how it could be enforced. So, if you take it literally and you create a new civil rights class for people who receive government assistance, well, then all sorts of activities that are totally normal, like credit checks, criminal background checks, security deposits, these can be considered acts of discrimination if they have a disparate impact. Not if your intent is to discriminate. Yeah, they don't need that. If it has a disparate impact on the population, people who receive government assistance, then that can be made illegal. So, and in fact, activists have already claimed that these things are discriminatory and should be made illegal in various states. They haven't done it here yet. There's not enough time where we have a track record of how this thing is actually going to be enforced. But in the final slide, this is something that we all have to pay attention to going forward. Landlords don't take Section 8 because they're racist. I mean, we're all familiar with any dissent from the orthodoxy is racist. But I mean, this one in particular is ridiculous. I mean, as a landlord, I don't have a particular. I would take Section 8. I can make more money doing it. I don't have a firm ideological objection to it. And certainly a publicly traded REIT that's run by a bunch of MBAs, if they could improve their returns on equity by 2% by taking vouchers, they would. But they don't. They don't. They're not talking about like buildings where they live. They're talking about buildings they own in San Antonio, and they're less likely to take Section 8 vouchers in a building in San Antonio where they don't live than a private owner in Baltimore is to take a voucher here. And there's a reality, which is it creates a down market property. That's a reality, and Section 8's flaws, HUD's bureaucracy, the difficulty to evict problem tenants. I mean, these are all part of the problems that go into people's decisions not to take this. And finally, each of these, by the way, during this debate, these were said multiple times by multiple people, almost as if they were talking points that were handed out by some of the progressive activists behind this. We had to do this in Baltimore. The court found us guilty of discrimination. That's just fundamentally not true. There was no court that has ever found Baltimore County guilty of housing discrimination for not participating in public housing in the 60s. It's a ridiculous argument. It's so ridiculous that the complainants, the ACLU, they wouldn't even take this to court. They knew they were going to lose. They took it to Obama's HUD in 2011. Not even Obama's HUD could find a basis to rule against Baltimore County. Kamenetz settled it because he was running for governor and he didn't want the headline of being sued by the ACLU while he's going for votes in the DC suburb. That's why we settled this meritless suit and why we had the obligation to vote on it, not to approve it, but to vote on it every year for the next 10 years. But that doesn't keep the activists from repeating this deliberate falsehood over and over. Here's this: every single legislator and county councilman saw these charts and was walked through them by the Multi-Housing Association. These are facts. These are facts, and all the virtue signaling in the world doesn't change them. This is what the Section 8 voucher process is. And on the left is what happens when you rent to a regular tenant. Now remember, the Section 8 program provides landlords guaranteed income by the federal government. And the worse off the tenant is financially, the greater the percent of the income that would be their rent is guaranteed. Up to, you can rent a $2,000 a month apartment out and government will pay all but $25. So why would you not take that? How bad does a program have to be run that you say no to that? And when you look at the chart on the right, that's part of why people say no. It doesn't have anything to do with the common narratives, the reasons that people give for why landlords don't want to take it. They don't want to let their place sit for 5 weeks while the government works through its ridiculous bureaucracy. One thing that I found working on this issue, I've joined a couple of forums for Section 8 voucher holders, and the benefits that they, or the complaints that they have are actually very similar to the complaints that landlords have. With the addition of, there's an incredibly long waiting list. It basically, they say in Baltimore County it's 9 years, but there are all sorts of, you know, kind of backdoor ways that you can jump the waiting list. Uh, and it's very opaque. But really, bureaucracy and paternalism. This is what the actual voucher holders don't like. Tell you how many bedrooms you can have. You can't have more or less. If they give you a voucher for 3 bedrooms, you want to rent a 2-bedroom house, you can't do it. You want to rent a 4-bedroom house, you can't do it. So when I looked into this, looking to possibly, become a Section 8 landlord long ago, one word of advice from somebody who did it was, you're going to have to do a lot of things that just don't make any sense. If you have a 4-bedroom house, you're going to have to take one of the bedrooms and rip out all the closets, because then HUD will consider it not to be a bedroom. It can't be a bedroom if it doesn't have closets. So then you can rent it, because most of the vouchers are 3-bedroom vouchers. So then you have a bigger market of voucher holders to market to. Like, it's going to make no sense. Why would you ever tear out a perfectly good closet in a house? But that's what you're going to have to do. So that's as frustrating to a landlord property owner as to a voucher holder. They tell you how much more you can pay, no more, no less. So, I mean, the people who are in this voucher system, they're living in an alternate universe. They're not responsible for negotiating their own deal. They don't get any of the benefit of saving money. If they find a place that's cheaper, doesn't matter. It's not their money. So, I mean, it creates a really, fundamentally wrong set of incentives. And now here with the BRHP, Baltimore Regional Housing Partnership, they'll tell you where you can and can't live to satisfy, their maps and moving people around. Another thing voucher holders really don't like, the inspections. So this is the government trying to protect them, unlike everyone else in the market, saying you cannot rent an apartment unless we send our employee out and check it and make sure it's good enough. So in fact, there are all sorts of horror stories on these forums about how the inspector came out, the person was moving from one apartment to another. The inspector came out and said, you can't live here. So what do? They have to go to a hotel or be homeless for 2 weeks or however long it takes to satisfy these inspections. I mean, this is one of the biggest issues landlords have also. Disincentives to work, dependency trap is probably how we would look at it. But I mean, people complain, I'm losing 40%, depends on the particular situation, on top of what I'm paying in taxes or whatnot, for every dollar I earn. So why bother working when the government's taking care of all these needs? It's a bad system. And then finally, finding a place. I mean, this is certainly a huge issue, but like I said, there's a lot of agreement between people who are on vouchers and landlords who don't want to take vouchers as to why the program sucks. And the people that are pushing this fourth Section 8 thing are the ones who refuse to reform this program. So neighborhoods don't like Section 8, makes eviction more difficult. They say, well, voucher holders can be evicted for crime if they commit crime. Yeah, but if it's somebody in their household who commits a crime, well, you can't do anything about that. And then groups like the ACLU, they have a long history of defending bad tenants' right to free housing. And if you look at all these activist groups, I mean, they're basically Marxist, ideologues who believe that getting a free house from the government is a human right. And if you can't get it in the neighborhood of your choice, then that is somehow, a human rights violation. Which is fundamentally antithetical to, how America works. The other thing, Section 8 does pay higher than market rents in many middle-class neighborhoods.